With 8 different champions in the last 8 seasons, I can understand why every fan base has at least a little bit of delusion as far as if their team can win the NBA Finals. So today, that's what we're here to talk about. We're going to go through every team, look at their next 3 years. Can they, will they, how do they win the NBA Finals? Well, again, we're going to see how likely it is. To start, we have to break down the tiers. At the top, you have title or bust. Basically, whether by the age of your superstars or just the overall roster talent that you have, you are expected to win the NBA Finals. And if you don't, that season could be looked at as an upright failure no matter what. Below that, we have right outside. These are teams that are always knocking on the window. For example, like the Timberwolves the last 2 seasons. Teams that we expect to be in the picture. They could win it all. But if they don't, they're not, I guess, scrutinized as much as the teams in the tier above them. For Cracked Open, this is aka the Indiana Pacers tier. Whether these teams have young talent or their veteran roster, if the cards fall in their favor and some injuries on the other team, go in their favor, these are teams that can make a run to the NBA Finals, and once you're there, it's a 50-50 shot. We're building. These are teams that have a lot of young talent, but maybe, kind of like the San Antonio Spurs, they're just a few years away. In the next 3 years, it's not likely they win it, but they got the nice pieces where they're building, and a couple years down the line, they could be some juggernauts. No chance in hell is pretty self-explanatory. These are teams that suck or in purgatory. Now, I could waste your time, but as you guys know, I'd prefer not to do that. So these are the teams in that bottom tier. We have the Nets, Jazz, Pelicans, Blazers, Suns, even though they have a top 20 player in the game. The Kings are an example of the purgatory. The Wizards and the Charlotte Hornets. They all have young, nice pieces, some more than others, but there's just no way that they are going to, even if the cards fall in their favor, make a run in this thing as far as being an NBA champion in the next couple years. Now we can go team by team and break down their situations, their futures, and see if they can be at the top of the mountain. For the Milwaukee Bucks, we're just going to start here and go down the list. This is a team that we expected to make a lot of noise this offseason, and they did, just not in the ways that we thought. We thought they would trade Giannis. We thought he would request a trade, but instead, they cut a star point guard who they traded a ton for after he tore his Achilles. Morally, that is not correct, and I'm sure a lot of players around the league might not want to play in Milwaukee after seeing how they treated a player like Damian Lillard's status. But they basically swapped Damian Lillard for Miles Turner. Does that move the needle? Does that entice me to say that this team could be a title contender? Even in a wide open West, it doesn't. I think that even in this weaker Eastern Conference, you're gonna need a 2018 level playoff LeBron James run from Giannis next year for this team to really have a chance at winning it all. So this is a team that I'm going to say it's cracked open out of respect for Giannis. For the New York Knicks, they brought in Mike Brown to run the ship going into next season and in years beyond. But this is a team that has a top 10 player in the game on the roster in Jalen Brunson. They have great supporting cast players around him. And this is a team that was just a few games away from the NBA Finals last season. I think this is a team that's been knocking on the door. And honestly, given that they are in New York with the media behind them and all the talent that they have with a top 10 player, it is a title or bust window for them over the next 3 seasons. The Toronto Raptors are interesting because on paper, you have a ton of talent. You have RJ Barrett, Brandon Ingram, who has yet to play for the Raptors, Scotty Barnes, who's looking to have a bounce back season. You have Jakob Poeltl, of course. This is a team that has a lot of defense and a lot of young stars on the roster, but we still have to see how they mesh together, and we want to see if these players are going to continue to get better, or are they going to hinder each other's progression as far as an individual basketball player going forward. But for the Raptors, they're interesting because a guy like Giannis could be traded there next week, and boom, with the talent they have around him, they could be a title contender. So for the weird reason that Toronto's always in the mix for some of these star players, I'm going to say that they're in the weird building tier. I think they're one piece away from really making a run at it in the Eastern Conference. The Houston Rockets are an interesting team because you bring in Kevin Durant after making a surprising run all the way to the 2nd seed in the Western Conference last season. Now, the playoffs didn't go as imagined, but you made some moves this offseason. Like I mentioned, you got rid of Jalen Green. You're bringing the greatest scorer that God's ever created. For that reason, you're automatically in these top 2 tiers. But when I look at the Rockets roster compared to the others around the league and the teams that will be in the tier above them, This is a team that has one really veteran-led player outside of Fred VanVleet that is trying to win a championship. But Sengun, Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, you have all these young players, Reed Shepard. This is a team that has time to get to the top of the mountain. So even if Kevin Durant comes here and he only plays a year or two and then requests a trade again, I don't think it's a failure for the Rockets. I think right now it's about getting experience and just really putting yourself in the fight. I don't think it's necessarily a title or bust situation for this team going forward, given all the young talent that they have. So I'm going to have them right outside. So if they make a run, great. If not, well, I'm not going to be too mad at them. The LA Lakers, there's no explanation needed here. You have Luka, LeBron heading into likely his last season. It is title or bust for you going forward. The Chicago Bulls, I'm going to have them in the we're building tier. This is a team that, yes, you don't have as much talent as a lot of the other people around the league, but man, they're just fun to watch. When you have Josh Giddey running up and down the court with Matas Buzelis, Patrick Williams, Kobe White. Sure, should they have no chance in hell? Absolutely. But this is a team that I love watching personally, and I'm going to have them in the we're building tier because due to their legacy, I want to be shocked if one of these big time talents and with the capital that Chicago has, maybe they do make a move to give next to Giddey and Matas Buzelis to really push this team over the top. But ultimately, I think they're in between the no chance in hell and we're building tier. For Minnesota, I'm going to put them in the same tier as the Houston Rockets. Now, you might get a little iffy on this one because this is a team that in back-to-back seasons has made miraculous runs to the Western Conference Finals. They've been right there. They've been knocking on the door. They need to take that extra step. But when you look at their roster, they haven't really made any necessarily big changes that's going to get me to think that they're going to be any more so of a contender than they were in years prior. So for the Timberwolves, you have a top 10 player in the game. You have a great supporting cast and defending group around him. But this is a team that I think you have Anthony Edwards, right? I think even if you don't win it in the next 3 years, just being in the mix, continuing to make maybe one or two more Western Conference Finals runs, this is a team that, sure, you'll get sick of it, but I'm not going to be really scrutinizing them if they don't end up going to the NBA Finals in a loaded Western Conference and winning it all. For the Denver Nuggets, this is a situation where you've been there, you've done that before. So now nothing less is really going to be satisfactory. For the Nuggets, you have the best player in the world, one of the greatest players of all time. You had a tremendous offseason. Of course, you're battling Jonas Valanciunas at the moment. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? Regardless, you bring in Cam Johnson, you bring in Tim Hardaway Jr., you're revamping this roster around a guy like Nikola Jokic to look a lot like how it was when you won the finals, aka you also brought back a guy like Bruce Brown. It's title or bust when you have the best player in the world at all times. Now, another title or bust is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, like the Houston Rockets, I'm not going to be mad at the Oklahoma City Thunder if they don't win it again in the next 3 years because though you have already been to the top of the mountain, though you've already dominated the NBA, and you have a player like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you are a team that is so young that I think at any point in time in the next 5 years, you can get back to the top of the mountain and win it all. But I think that's for the reason that you've already won the finals. You're looking to do something that a team hasn't done in almost a decade, which is repeat as NBA champions. So over the next 3 years, I think it is now more so the pressure of we're building a dynasty. We already been there. We got our one, but we got to get two more. So for the Oklahoma City Thunder, for the fact that you've been there, it's title or bust as well. For Memphis, I'm putting them in the we're building tier because you do have some nice young pieces. You have Ja, you have Jaren Jackson, Santi Aldama, Zach Edey's okay in his own right. But this is a team that, yes, you had to do something this offseason to change it up, and you ended up trading away Desmond Bane, and you got a haul in return. But ultimately, this is a team that, because you have Ja and Jaren Jackson, you're in the right direction heading, into the future. But I want to see them make one or two more moves before we really say that they can really get to the top of the mountain like they were supposed to do a couple years ago. For Dallas, oh, how the fortunes have landed in their favor. You traded away one of the best players of all time in Luka Doncic, and now you get the number one overall pick. Cooper Flag, not Caper Flag, Cooper Flag joins Kyrie, Anthony Davis, Klay Thompson, Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, a Hall of Fame player as a head coach, and Jason Kidd. This is a team that their window is cracked open because when Kyrie returns, This is a roster that is veteran-led, and they have some of the younger pieces that, they're fresh legs, right? They can bring that intensity. And if Cooper Flagg, being the number one overall pick, can show promise and develop quickly at the NBA level, this is a team that's going to be scary. They're going to be a complete roster top to bottom with a great head coaching staff. And though they lost Luka, I say that over the next 3 years, I wouldn't be shocked if they went to the NBA Finals or at least were in the mix for it. So for Dallas, your window is cracked open for the next couple years. Now for Wemby and company, we're building as well. You're just such a young team, right? You have a relatively newer head coach and Mitch Johnson there taking over for the greatest of all time in Greg Popovich. So for the Spurs, you have the right pieces. In these next couple years, I just want to see you make a deep run. At least one of these years, make it to the second round or third round of the Western Conference playoffs. That I would find to be more of a success and more, I guess, reasonable than saying that they go to the NBA Finals and win it. But who knows? Wemby looks unstoppable when he is healthy and on the court. For the Clippers, I'm going to say their window is cracked open as well because in the next 2 years, you're going to have James Harden and you're going to have Kawhi Leonard. So when you have two guys like that, two top 25 to 40 level players in the game with a great coach and a good supporting cast, you're always going to be in the mix. I mean, this is a team that last year got hot and they won 17 of 18 games right before the playoffs. So they can get hot. This is a team that some thought could make a run in last year's playoffs. Of course, they didn't. They got eliminated in the first round. But for the Clippers, again, when you have players like that, your window is still cracked open. For Golden State, they are a title or bust team if I've ever seen one. For the simple fact that you have two four-time champions on your roster, arguably the greatest player at his position ever and shooter ever in Stephen Curry. Anything less than a title at this point after you've won so many is not satisfactory. So for the Warriors, let's get Steph and Dre one more ring. If not, I do think they are internally going to look at it as a failure of a season. This time, though, you have Jimmy Butler for a full season, so it should be more interesting in Golden State. Now, Detroit, this is a team that I would say their window is cracked open as well because you're in a weaker conference, relatively, and you have a team that last year, under JB Bickerstaff, made a great run until the first round of the NBA playoffs, and you took the Knicks to 6th. With this team, Cade's only going to get better. Jaden Ivey's only going to get better. You have great veterans like Tobias Harris to help, help these younger guys grow into their own. But for the Pistons, again, great run last year. I expect that to grow going forward. For the Cavaliers, it is title or bust. I'm a Cavaliers fan, and we should have made deeper runs in the last two playoffs here with Donovan Mitchell in town, but we're just too soft. We don't have a backbone in Cleveland, and that's why that we have flamed out 2 years in a row. So this year, on paper, we are a team that can continue the trend of being a new champion over the last 8 to 9 years, but we're not tough enough. If we can develop a backbone and have a stronger mentality, this is a team that should dominate the Eastern Conference and go to the NBA Finals, and at that point, anything's possible, right? But honestly, I just don't know if we have that mentality in us to actually make that deep of a run. Regardless, with the overall talent that we have on this roster, we are a title or bust team over the next 3 years. Now this one's interesting, but I'm going to have Boston as a cracked open window over the next 3 years. And that's simply because of we don't know what this team is going to look like a year from now, 2 years from now, and so on and so forth. We do know that you have Jaylen Brown and a Jason Tatum that is coming off an Achilles tear, and he won't be playing until next season. Not this season, next season. And by that point, is Derek White still the same player? I have no doubt that'll be the case, but still, do you have enough talent around Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum where when Tatum returns 2 years down the line, are you going to be able to make a run at it? The reason why Boston looked like the most dominant champion in the last decade was simply they had the perfect players to fit Joe Mazzulla's system, which is switch everything and shoot a lot of threes, and hopefully you can do it at a great level. They did that, and really without Kristaps Porzingis. So when Jason Tatum returns, again, he's going to need a ramp-up period. You're still going to have Jaylen Brown and Derek White. But outside of that, what players are you going to be able to put around your stars to really put this team back in the mix, to fit Joe Mazzulla's system, and to compete at a high level? But ultimately, their window's still cracked open because they have a top 5, top 6 player in the world when he does return. Now, this one's interesting, but the Philadelphia 76ers, you could put them in cracked open. You could put them in right outside. But ultimately, when you pay three players on your roster, as much money as they are, you are title or bust. For the Sixers, you have Joel Embiid, who you can really only get 45 games out of every single season, which is unfortunate because when he plays, he's arguably a top three player in the world, but he just hasn't been healthy in his entire career. You brought in Paul George and paid him 50 plus million dollars. Last year, he stunk the bed. And Tyrese Maxey, he was promising, he was great next to Jared McCain, but he got injured. Jared McCain got injured. So this is a team that you're battling a lot of hurdles going into the future. But with the talent that you do have on this roster and in a relatively easier conference, you have the talent. And if you could stay healthy, you should probably win the conference, to be honest with you. So I'm expecting a big bounce back year from everybody and an improvement year from Tyrese Maxey. But for the Sixers, it is title or bust with the talent that you do have. For Orlando, this is interesting, and I understand not everybody's going to be in this camp, but I am a big Paolo Banchero believer, and he is a top 15 player in the game, in my opinion. This is a team that made some big additions this offseason. For one, they got healthy, and that's an addition in its own. But also, you bring in Desmond Bane, a guy that last year was the pseudo point guard for the Memphis Grizzlies. So he brings that to the Orlando Magic. Again, something they desperately needed. And then he also brings outside elite stretch ability for this offense that centers around guys like Franz and Paolo that really work in the mid-range and attacking the paint. So Desmond Bane is a huge addition to this offense and to this team in general. You get Jalen Suggs back. You still have Wendell Carter. I do think that over the next 3 years, if they can find a little bit of a better center option, or just, hey, maybe move Wendell to the bench and get a better center, this is a team that is right there to make a deep run, especially in a conference that's wide open. Now, Miami, when I look at their roster, sure, you just brought in Norman Powell. Does that make you a play-in team instead of, or does that make you the 10 seed instead of the 11 seed? Maybe. But for this team, and for the fact that they have such a big market, I'm going to put them in the we're building tier because of the fact that it's Miami. At any point in time, one of these big superstars could want to go to Miami, like Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, will he? I don't know what the state tax is, but for Miami, you're always going to be in the mix because overnight, you can change the trajectory and the outlook of your team going forward. For the Atlanta Hawks, a lot of people are going to love them going into this upcoming season, and I'm in the boat with them. I can understand why you're getting hype around the Atlanta Hawks. You have Trae Young, Dyson Daniels, a healthy Jalen Johnson returning. You bring in Kristaps Porzingis. You still have a guy like Zachary Risache, the former #1 overall pick, constantly improving, and he showed a lot of great promise at the end of last season. So this is a team that is 7 to 8 players deep. You have Quinn Snyder, who is a proven veteran head coach at the NBA level. I'm excited for the Atlanta Hawks. Now, do I think they have a better chance than, say, some of the teams above them? No, but again, they are known to be underdogs with Trae Young as their lead guy. They've made a deep run before. I think this is the most talented roster Trae Young has ever had around him since he has been drafted into the NBA. So they can make a run at it, no doubt about it, like the Pacers did last season. Speaking of the Indiana Pacers, this is a team that will not have their star point guard for the entirety of next season, and that, of course, is Tyrese Halliburton. They also lost their really franchise cornerstone at the center position in Miles Turner, as we all know. So for the Pacers, sure, can I look at this roster and say they are veteran-led, they did this last year as true underdogs, and they have one of the greatest coaches in the league today. They can make another run at it. I can understand the argument, but ultimately, I don't think they go as far as they do without Tyrese Halliburton, though his numbers were not always the greatest. So for this team, 2 years down the line when Halliburton returns, my biggest question is, what is the situation in this roster going to look like around Halliburton? Are you still going to be able to bring back all these good bench and role players around him? Is Halliburton going to need a full season to ramp up? I don't think he will, but still, Pascal's only going to be older at that point, and he's going to regress naturally, as we see a lot of older players do. So I'm interested to see their situation, but to imagine that this team 2 years down the line, when Halliburton is back and ready to go, contends for another title, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. So I think their window is slightly cracked open. But that's going to do it here for today's video. We went through every team, and over the next 3 NBA seasons, whether by injury, whether by the age of your superstars, or the talent that you have, How likely are you to win an NBA Finals? Again, we've had 8 different champions in the last 8 seasons. No team has repeated since the Warriors so long ago. But that is it, man. Let me know your team in the comments section, your expectations for them over the next couple seasons, and how likely is your team to win the NBA Finals? Let me know.